Welcome to the Common Geeking Program. We are a book club style podcast where each episode we discuss a different topic from our own geeky and nerdy perspectives. I am your host, Jeff Leavitt, and this week we are going to be taking a look at the Legend of Vox Machina from Amazon. This is a adaptation of part of the D&D Real Play Podcast Critical Role, and we'll get into a bit more of the specifics words of that in a bit. But either way, this time around, I am joined by two fellow nerds who can introduce themselves.
You want to go first?
Maybe. If you guys can
do you want to go
sort
first?
that out.
Sure, fine. God,
This is what happens
Yeah, we didn't discuss prior.
when there's not more than one white guy on an episode, is that you're not just stepping on each other's toes.
Yeah, we're just waiting each other's turn. It's fine.
we're like penguins, like just kind of like at the edge, going, "You want to go first? You want to go first? Is there a lion seal in there?" All right. Hello, my name is Chowder. My actual name is Taeemul. I'm singing this intro in a limerick because I feel like that'd be on theme.
Chowder is a bard, I guess, is your class for this episode.
Yeah.
Which I guess will make me your DM. I don't know.
Yeah. I'm Jocelyn. If I had to pick a class, probably Druid. Sounds like a fun time. Me and Keyleth would vibe. Yeah.
Now, is that specific to your role in this episode? Are you going to be introducing some plants into our podcast episode?
I mean, I could introduce you to them. It would not. That's not a very auditorial experience,
right?
So
like we can just kind of know that there is a fern sitting behind Jocelyn this whole time, and you'll just have to take our word for it.
No, there's a snake plant, but yes.
Well, let's hear the snake plant's opinion. All right.
He liked Critical Role.
Rad.
Cool. All right, guys. So we're going to start off by summarizing and discussing the topic, and then end with a little rating section where we decide if it was worthwhile or not. So, yeah, this is kind of a fun one. Because Vox Machina, or the Legend of Vox Machina, like I said, is an adaptation of a Real Play Podcast Critical Role. And part of the fun sort of like identity of Critical Role to begin with is that all of the people playing are voice actors. So they all came back and reprised their roles for this animated series on Amazon. Now, before we get into that, Jocelyn...
Yes, hi, hello.
You actually worked on this a little bit.
Oh, I did.
You want to talk about like what that entailed?
Yeah. So I was the assistant editor for Post, I should clarify, because we did have another assistant who was on for animatics for the first half. I did a lot of really weird things on Critical. I will say I actually helped build the first initial radio plays for like the 4th and 5th episode way back when it was first starting, just kind of helping out because like a friend was out of town and they were like, "Can you do this?" And I was like, "Sure." And then we finally get around to Picture, where I was working with another editor, Todd. He had been kind of like my mentor at the time. And so he was like, "Hey, do you want to work on Critical with me?" And I was like, "Yes, please. I like nerdy things in D&D. I'd like to be on this very large project." And so I got to work with him on... I'm trying to figure out what I'm allowed to say here.
Yeah, really.
So I did Post on the episodes for season 1. And I did work a little bit on other things. I believe I'm allowed to say season 2 exists. Yeah, I'm pretty sure I'm allowed to say that. I think that was part of the order when Amazon picked it up. They were like, "Yeah, we're gonna pay for the second season. Backers paid for season 1. We'll pay for season 2." It's pretty sure how it went down.
which is
kind of wild.
Which is really interesting that like the show was actually backer run
Oh,
to
yeah.
begin with. Like,
That was...
I don't know how many like shows, especially for like Amazon, start out that way.
Well, so that was the wildest thing working, because like I've been in the know about the show since the Kickstarter, weirdly enough.
Right, yeah.
And so we would have, every so often someone would bring up the Kickstarter on Google and be like, it's at how much now? It's raised how much money now? What? And so we were slowly seeing how it devolved into being, it was supposed to only be these 2 original first episodes.
Oh my gosh. That was all it was supposed to be.
It was 2 episodes dedicated to, I'm pretty sure it was that arc. And then when we got more money, we're like, let's do more.
And those first 2 episodes aren't even like actually a part of the like broadcasted Critical Role podcast, right?
It was part of the pre-campaign.
Because they start off kind of weird.
They had done a bit of the campaign before realizing, oh, we can make this a podcast. So, yeah, it was a lot of fun though. It was really cool.
We can get into some of that a little bit later.
Yes.
Out of curiosity,
and,
I looked up if they confirmed season 2 or not. They did.
Oh,
I
thank
just,
God.
because I would have found
Good
it
to know.
I would have found it hilarious if this is where the first confirmation of season 2 was.
I will say, for the record, I am not currently on season 2. I did work on parts of season 2 while we were doing season 1.
Right.
It's been in the pipeline. So I'm not currently on season 2, and I cannot confirm or deny anything that is to come. Only what happened on season 1. Just
Fair
as
enough.
my disclaimer.
But yeah, but we can pick your brain about that a little bit later. But let's actually get into summarizing the sort of plot here. Now, we should also say, like, I don't know about 2 of you. I have not listened to any Critical Role, just because, like, it's a really long podcast and there's really long episodes. And it, like we've kind of alluded to, it starts off a little bit in the middle of something. So it's really hard to kind of find a place to pick up from. What is your guys' experience with the actual podcast itself?
So my experience is just, I've tried to listen to the podcast, but like it hasn't worked out, simply because like anytime I try to listen to it, like I'll lose my place or something, and it's not as easy.
I will say campaign 1 is not nearly as accessible as the further stuff that they do after.
Yeah.
I mean, even with campaign 2, like on my podcast app, I spent like time looking for like season 2, episode 1, and just like it started at like 200, and I'm like, I can't do this. Like, if you're watching it on YouTube, that's one thing, but I'm like, oh, I want to listen to it while I drive, because I drive for work, right?
Get that
and
YouTube
I just
Premium.
Like couldn't find it at all.
Yeah, no, it's kind of hard. When we heard that we were doing it, I tried to look into watching it, and I got very turned around and was just like, I'm gonna be too much into it anyway. I'll just learn it through doing it.
Right. And yeah, I will say that the show itself is quite digestible. Yeah. So the main plot of it, really, I mean, basically, like, if you're familiar with like sort of classic kind of D&D of like, you have an adventuring party of different characters who all have their own like, tragic backstories or lack thereof and stuff like that. It basically kind of sets up that premise right from the get-go, where like we don't get, they've got a group of 7 characters. 7. There's Grog, right? There's
Grog,
Keyleth,
Scanlan, Pyke,
Vex and Vax,
Percy, and on occasion Trinket.
Okay, Trinket is the bear?
Trinket's the bear. I love Trinket.
I wasn't counting. It was that number, but
yeah, it is 7, but Trinket makes it 8.
Okay, gotcha. We don't get any sort of like immediate backstory as to like how all of them met. We just know that they're this group and they call themselves Vox Machina, and they basically are swords for hire. And, we kind of open up with like a barroom brawl, just kind of like getting little snippets into the characters' like actions and stuff to kind of establish their characters. And then the whole first 2 episodes are basically devoted to them like taking on a job to fight this like mysterious creature that is, threatening the realm or whatever. And it turns out to be a giant dragon. And throughout the first 2 episodes, they're kind of like coming more together as a team, sort of in lieu of that meeting each other kind of stage in a story, and end up vanquishing the dragon, and become sort of de facto heroes of the realm. They're given a house and basically set up to like continue doing like the kingdom's jobs or whatever. And then the rest of the season is it's a little strange the way that it's split up like this, but the rest of the season is devoted to one of the characters' kind of backstories, Percy, who like his backstory was that like his
entire family was murdered.
By vampires, yeah.
By a vampire, yeah.
Yeah. I didn't realize that till later, that only the guy is a vampire and the girl is just his wife is just the one who brought him back.
She's a witch necromancer type, yeah.
Yeah.
Oh wow.
She's not a vampire, which is why you can see her in the mirror reflection.
Oh, I'm dead, so I didn't even. I thought she was a vampire too.
We literally do, I think, 3 or 4 different shots of making sure that it's like he's a vampire, she's not.
I didn't really realize that until like the little backstory episode where they're like showing how she did it, and then I'm like, oh, I guess she's just
she's like a necromancer witch type, I believe.
I mean, necromancers can be vampires. That's a treat.
Yeah, it's true.
But she is
they're not
undead.
Mutually exclusive.
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah.
Because she only did it because she loved him so much she didn't want him to die, and to live on without him. That was like the whole.
So basically, in Percy's backstory, he had been he was like the prince of this kingdom, and then these vampire and not vampire came in and basically took over the whole place, killed most of his family. And he ended up getting away, and then he ends up making some sort of deal with some dark entity and forges this pistol, and that's like, he's is he a warlock? Is that his
I'm pretty sure that's legally distinct Eldritch Blast that he's backing right there.
Well, he made his own class for this.
Okay.
Oh, that makes a lot of sense.
Yeah,
because the rest of them were really easy to figure out, but and we can kind of run through the characters after
I will say his was, I believe, like loosely based on like I believe a Pathfinder gunslinger.
That makes a lot of sense.
And then they reworked and reframed it so that he could do something in D&D, to my recollection.
Like warlock. Yeah, he seems like warlocky in nature just because of the whole demon deal.
Yeah, he kind of has like a patron.
But I don't know what he becomes after.
Same.
They
I
get
also
rid of
don't
it.
Remember.
But anyway, so his whole backstory is that basically, and then when they're at the dinner, they're at like a big dinner with the king. The Briarwoods is what the vampire and not vampire are called. They show up, and then they end up getting into a confrontation, and then they go and basically rescue his hometown, kingdom, whatever. And there's obviously more to it than that we can get into, but like I just thought it was important to emphasize, like, first 2 episodes, dragon fight. Well, the rest of the
dragon is connected to the twins, but they really
that's true, but they don't really. I mean, it's basically
yes and no. They're connected to maybe potentially the season finale thing, the cliffhanger potentially.
Yeah.
But yeah, for the most part, the entire rest of the season is based on Percy's backstory and also Pyke going on her own side quest of self-discovery. That's like the B plot of the season.
It sounds very clumsy the way it's set up, but it doesn't really like come across that way. Like, I think it flowed better than it feels like it ought to have.
Yeah.
Given, like, our introductory season for these characters is like mostly focused on 1 out of 7 of them, but they still find ways to like give everyone else their, important stuff.
Yeah, like
happening.
that's the thing with this campaign is the Briarwood arc, I want to say was like 90 hours of episode in the podcast.
Oh, Jesus. Yeah.
So for them to condense it, like there was a lot that happened in that arc. It is a full arc of a thing. So it needed that amount of time to really tell that story.
Right, yeah.
Yeah, like there is a lot of clunk in the story, but like it's clearly just because they're taking an improvised like a story that was done on improv and then having to fit it in a 3-act structure shaped hole.
Right. And like that, that kind of thing works better in the context of like a D&D campaign too, because like you can have sections of it that are more like focused on one character's thing while, still giving time for everyone else to do their stuff too. But before we get too deep into it, I do want to, kind of quickly run through our characters and their like D&D classes. So we've got Percy, that, he's our warlock / gunslinger type character. We've got Vex and Vax, who are the twins, and I always forget which is which.
They even crack a joke about
that. Gosh, I always get it really... They don't help their case because in their little intro thing, they like alternate. They're like, he's Vex, she's Vax. Like they say the other person's name, and I should know it by now. I'm pretty sure.
Vex
it's
is
Vexalia. Vexalia is Vex. She's...
Yeah. Vex is the ranger. She's kind of the unofficial leader of the group, just because she's the one who actually, like, tries to keep everyone on
Percy
track.
thinks he's in the lead, but it's really her.
Yeah.
Like, Percy thinks he's in charge. Yeah. And doesn't want to be, but he thinks he is.
Yeah, Vax is the rogue. He's Vex's twin. He, has a thing for...
He is a bisexual rogue, and I love that for him.
Yeah, no. Can't go wrong with the bisexual
And they're
rogue.
both... They're full elves or half elves?
Half elves.
And Percy is human.
Can't fully say.
I don't know. But either way, yeah, that's them. Then we've got Scanlan, who is a gnome. He's the bard. He's pretty much just there to, like,
he's comedic relief.
And drink.
Yeah.
Yeah, he's kind of the comedic relief.
Like, he's your typical, like, horny bard archetype.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Then we've got Keyleth, who is the druid.
Yeah.
She's pretty typical, just like into nature bullshit.
Yeah, you know, like the shy demure, but like also wants to do her best kind of character. She and Vax have like a thing for each other, but...
She is also on a quest for, like... She has her own personal motivations that she has to, like, fulfill in order to return back to her home family. That's, like, her big thing is she's not fulfilling her destiny.
Right, yeah. There's, like, a line of dialogue in the season about it. And then there's, like, I assume, going to get further into to further, other characters' backstories and motivations as it goes on. Then there is Pyke, who is also a gnome?
She's also a gnome.
Yeah.
Paladin, I believe?
And she's the... Oh, paladin.
Or is it cleric?
She was a cleric.
It's probably cleric.
Yeah. Because she's like the Healy boy. Paladin would be more like holy fighter kind of.
Well, because she is a fighty girl, but that's why my brain is always like Paladin, but no, she's a cleric.
And right, like she had a whole part of the season where she kind of, was like after getting like poisoned by the Briarwoods or something, she was like loses touch with her holy symbol, and then she has to like fuck off for a while and go like find herself.
Which she had been having problems with it prior to that encounter, and it just made it worse.
Yeah, right. And it was this whole thing where it's just like, oh, you gotta like be true to yourself, and that doesn't necessarily mean being like holier than thou or whatever. Like to be true to yourself, you really want to like, drink and fight with these group of rough and tumble idiots, and that's who you are. And like, that's okay. Like was her whole, yeah.
I really do like her arc. It was one of my favorite parts of the show, actually.
She was the one voice actor that like, I definitely immediately recognized. She's she's Tulip from Infinity Train.
Lauren Ash, I believe.
Ashley Johnson.
Ashley Johnson. Wow, it's been a while since I've been on this show, so it's been the names are all.
Yeah, I mean, the one I recognized immediately were Laura Bailey, who voices various characters, but the one I'm familiar with is Lucina from Fire Emblem, and Matthew Mercer, who voices many things. Particularly,
I was wondering that. So in the original podcast, Matt Mercer is the DM, right?
Yeah.
So I was wondering like how many characters he would be playing, because obviously they're not going to have him just play and everyone else like he would in the actual game.
Yeah, I think he got his pick of people he wanted to play.
Yep.
Gotcha.
But they had various particular people in mind for other roles, which was really cool.
Yeah, makes sense.
But the last member of the cast is Grog.
And he's a
barbarian giant?
He's a
half giant.
Half giant.
In D&D, he's a Goliath, which are basically
Goliath. I was
giants, but like
I knew it was a different word, and I was like, what is the word? Because I know it. It's like, it's a Goliath.
But like in the in the actual animated series, they call him a giant because legalese.
Yeah, there's a lot of that. That's also why it's Scanlan's hand and not Mage Hand.
They do say at some point that he's part giant, right? Because then actual like giants do show up.
Yeah.
So like there's implied that he's not like full giant,
but yeah. On a tangentially related note, Matthew Mercer also voiced the English dub for Jotaro Kujo from JoJo's Bizarre Adventures, thus letting me shoehorn JoJo's Bizarre Adventure into everything because it's I don't know, it's got like a stranglehold on my mind for some reason. Anyways.
Oh, and then Trinket is a bear, and that's also voiced by Matt Mercer.
Oh, interesting.
Yeah.
So I'm really interested in this idea though of like an adaptation of a real play podcast, because like I mean other than that, right, like the Adventure Zone has comics, and I feel like there was talks like a while ago. Yeah, that's I hadn't heard anything about it in like a couple of years, but I thought I
think COVID.
Wait.
Yeah,
David Tennant is in this.
Yeah,
what?
He plays Krieg.
yeah, like he played General Krieg. I'm like, what?
Yeah, he was the dragon.
Yeah, no, I just didn't realize David Tennant was in this.
Yeah,
that's interesting.
We let him be Scottish and everything.
I didn't even notice that.
Also, cool. The guy from Lord of the Rings, Merry or Pippin, I can never remember which one he played.
The guy in Lost or the other one?
Lost, yeah.
Yeah, he's Merry.
Yeah, he plays Archie in Critical. He's really good.
Which one is Archie? Is that
the friend of Percy, the guy who got tortured?
Oh,
and then slashed in half.
Gotcha.
Spoilers.
Right. So yeah, I mean, we can go a little bit more deeply into the Briarwood arc is really the majority of the season. Like basically, like after they go down, they go to I keep forgetting the name of the actual place. What is the place that the Briarwoods took over, like his home kingdom?
Whitestone.
Whitestone,
right?
I was about to say Whiterun. I'm like, no, that's Skyrim. Whiterun is Skyrim.
This is a big test of my memory because it's been so long since I used to know everything so well, and then I have not been on this show in like almost a year now.
Did you not watch it?
I did. I watched it, but like I still don't. It's.
Yeah.
I move on.
So yeah, they go to Whitestone, and then they end up discovering that there's like a resistance of like people in the town who are trying to take down the Briarwoods, and they also discover that Percy's sister, who he thought was like gunned down in front of her, actually survived and has been like held captive. This like how it's been like what, like 10-15 years or something like that.
Yeah, at least 10.
So then, yeah, I mean, so the rest of it is like, it's interesting in the way that it's set up, right? Because it's like basically like it does sort of read like D&D objectives and stuff like that. You know what I mean? Where like they jump from one thing to another. So it's like, okay, you've got to accomplish this. And like, though they have to, for trademark reasons, change all the like spells and stuff like that, a lot of it is still recognizable. And there's still like, it's interesting to watch something like this that is an adaptation of a D&D thing, because it's like, though yes, obviously it's changed a lot for the adaptation and a lot of stuff was cut out, there's still moments in it where like something happens and then there's that feeling of like that was a critical failure or or like a 20 or a 1, like for big moments like that really feels like it.
Or it's like, oh, you got a nat 20 on that thing right there. No way you would have been able to normally do that.
Or like you'll have like moments where like one character will try something fail and like immediately another character tries it and succeeds, and it's like, oh, I can see how like one guy like failed the roll and the other
except for
succeeded.
Doors.
I was enjoying the part where like they split the party up into two, and one of the halves of the party was trying to break into the back door, and the rogue was trying to pick the lock, and he just kept failing at it over and over again until one of them just kicks the door in. And I was just thinking, like, shout out to to one of the D&D campaigns that Chowder and I were involved in, where I was a rogue and I failed like 10 turns in a row to pick a lock, and it was absolutely miserable.
Like we were trapped in a room with a cowboy dragon, and like he was trying to unlock the door to get out, and we were all just fighting the dragon, and
I love those moments, and getting to see that you can just feel it as a D&D player watching it. You're like, oh, that's what happened.
Yeah, which
is really cool that we were able to get that vibe.
Yeah, and because like that's part of the fun aspect of D&D, right? Is that like within reason, no matter what your character's skills or anything are, there's always a 1 out of 20 chance that you'll fuck up something that you should be really good at, or just succeed at something that you have no right to be able to do. So like that, that kind of like randomness of like, oh yeah, everyone is not like a fucking superhero, and some shit goes bad, and like also sometimes you just fucking luck out. Like that's kind of the thing that is really interesting, that they were able to like actually communicate into the show itself. Whereas that's something that's just sort of innate to like role-playing games in general, at least specifically D&D.
And like where that's like an advantage, I feel like one disadvantage is like they can't quite story arcs or thematic arcs to line up. Like in the first episode, there'll be like, there was like a moment where all the parties like kicked out of the bar, and they're all like, why are we even together? We're just a bunch of losers. And it's like, this doesn't really mean anything to me because we just met you. And it makes more sense in the context of D&D, where one, you probably spend more time with the characters, and two, having the party stay together is something you would want. Whereas
like all these characters, it's just like when they say that, you're like, yeah, why are you together? Because like that's part of the suspension of disbelief in like almost every D&D campaign, unless it's like real attention is paid to this, is that the kind of core premise of this is like you have a bunch of characters who might not jive with each other, but they have to interact with each other because you're playing a game with your friends in real life, right?
And you have to give them kind of a reason for everyone to get together in a way.
Like the fantasy reason is just like, yeah, why are all these characters together? Like, especially like, you're like looking at like, oh, Percy, who's kind of on this like vengeance quest and is like kind of a loner, like, how did A get to B? Why are you in this group of 7 people?
Yeah, Percy being in that group is the wildest of the calculations, because it's like Pyke and Grog are best buddies. Vax and Vex are siblings. Keyleth needs help to figure out her quest, so she's joined a group of people, and this is who she's happened to join. Scanlan
just wants to get his dick wet with somebody else.
Yeah.
Yeah.
and it pays the bills to follow a band around and talk about how great they are.
Yeah.
Right.
So like bards are easy to like tag in, but like Percy, Mr. Broody Boy, why are you here? Oh, her name is Vex. That's why.
Yeah, you think that there's a thing. I wasn't sure if that was just like if they were just trying to establish like a.
Am I allowed to spoil the end of the entire actual campaign 1?
Sure, go.
Yeah, I guess so.
They get married and have lots of kids.
Oh,
interesting. Okay.
Yeah.
So because like I was kind of wondering because like there's also like a bit of an implied thing between Pyke and Scanlan too,
which like
the two
I don't
gnomes.
Like
I actually don't know how that turns out.
Yeah,
I'll be honest.
Yeah, I mean they don't really interact all that much, despite like how the camera will like hold on them, like, oh yeah, they're totally a thing, and it's like at best we get like Scanlan doing a bit of flirting, and then Pyke being like, whatever.
Yeah.
Yeah, but I mean, I feel like it's just something that they're trying to like, lay the seeds for, and then set up in a different season.
Well, and that is something that I think I can kind of talk about in terms of like they did have to alter stuff from the campaign to make stuff work for television.
Right, yeah.
Like,
Yeah, I was wondering that too, because, like, you know, like, in D&D campaigns, like, usually having, like, inter-party romance is kind of a tricky thing that doesn't work out
but
super
like
well.
they do it in the podcast, and like it makes sense. They're all actors. They're more than used to fake flirting with each other.
And you're also seeing them for 6-hour sessions. So like this Briarwood arc is a 90-hour arc. Yeah, it would make sense for some of these characters to grow more attached to each other and grow feelings for each other in this arc. But we've only seen them as viewers of the TV show for maybe 3 or 4 hours.
Yeah,
so
exactly.
You're not getting the connection emotionally to some of the moments that in the podcast may have landed and worked. So you have to rework how you're laying the seeds for a relationship differently than you would in a D&D session. Because that was something we did actually have to like adjust, and I don't know how many fans like kind of caught on to that, because that was the thing, watching everyone who has seen the campaign see the show, all of them going, oh, they changed this, they did this and did this instead, and I'm like, you guys remember?
Yeah, no shit.
But we also we paid attention to a lot of it and made sure to like put care in all of it so that there's little Easter eggs and stuff, and like there's so much care in that transition for those people so that they can feel acknowledged of like, oh, this was intentional for you guys. We wanted you to pick up on these things.
My first reaction would be to like, you know, oh, fuck off. Of course they had to change shit. But that being said, I also, you know, when I'm reading like the Adventure Zone graphic novel, I'll be like getting to a page and be like, ah, damn, I can't believe they changed that. Or I can't believe they cut that part out. So like there's still, you know,
I feel like that's true of any change of medium, though. So,
well, yeah, for sure, but it's a weird thing with you know, real play stuff in particular, because
there's a lot of fluff in real play, like
right, yeah, and like you
but
know,
fans care about that fluff.
There's another part of it.
Yeah,
there's I don't know how Critical Role is, but in terms of like some other real play podcasts, part of the charm of it is also not just the interaction between the characters, but the interaction between the players. And when you're just adapting the story, all of that sort of inherently gets cut out, which I think is kind of an interesting dynamic. Like, Critical Role, I think that maybe they're a bit more just like staying in character all the time because they're actors.
No, there are moments where they break and have stuff like they do have that, but it's not to the extent of probably your Taz's or
right. Whereas like with the Adventure Zone, it's like, I don't know, maybe like 60-40 in terms of like player, or like you know, like mostly it's character stuff, but also there's just a lot of the McElroys being family and stuff like that.
Right, and like a significant difference between like Critical Role and your average run-of-the-mill D&D campaign is that, well, they are performers doing a performance, and thus they have to work within that, whereas like in D&D, you know, there's just having a campaign for fun with your friends, and like you're not like recording anything. It's like you can just do things like faff about or not progress things, or
right.
Critical does a bit of a good job of keeping the train on the tracks in that sense.
Yeah.
That they know you're here for the story more.
Yeah,
so,
exactly. Like,
I think.
You know, the like that's one thing I can speak to experience in that I do a real play podcast too, and it's just like I sometimes where normally I just let the players do their thing, I gotta like be like, hey guys, we gotta keep it moving, you know?
Yeah. And that, you know, that's a really difficult thing too. Like, I mean, like, not speaking as someone who's done a podcast on it, but just like being a DM in general is like, you know, there's sort of a balance between like being able to kind of figure out like, okay, do the characters and the players just need more time to kind of progress this on their own, or if we hit a wall, and do I need to like step in and just like introduce something else to move it forward, or just like, you know, it can be a really tricky sort of balancing act in terms of like, well, you don't want to just like railroad people and by pushing the next story point, but if if we've gotten to a point where they're not, you know, progressing it on their own, or like if you haven't given them enough to kind of chew on, then it's like a hard line to walk.
Yeah. But then turning all of that into a show, you're kind of like,
yeah.
Now you have all these fans who may have really enjoyed some of those out of character moments where it's just the people talking, and you can't inherently incorporate that always. And
right, yeah.
Finding a way to like make sure that you keep those moments somehow that they really enjoyed, finding a way to work those in, because your fans do care about it and they funded it, and you want to make sure that it's something they enjoy while also making sure it's a good story for any newcomers. And it's a very fun balance to try and find.
And, you know, it's interesting, too, because it's like, it's not like that's an inherently impossible thing to do either. Like, I'm going to keep talking about this. I'm sorry, but, you know, it's just the closest thing I have to compare to it. But, like, the Adventure Zone graphic novels, right? Like, they don't go so far as to, like, you know, have whole panels devoted to, like, you know, them sitting around a table or whatever. But they do have Griffin, like, as a character in the book, pop in a little bubble and, like, make comments and remarks based on, like, what the characters are doing and stuff like that, like, as a floating DM in the sky, and kind of breaking the fourth wall a little bit. And that's, like, an interesting way to do that, because it's like, well, at the end of the day, if you're just adapting the story, like, you're definitely going to get all of the fun stuff from the characters and the player characters, but you're not necessarily getting as much of the identity of the DM in this. Like, they did that by incorporating, you know, Matt Mercer into the voice cast and having him voice several characters. And, you know, at the end of the day, it's all his DNA, because he's the one who, like, wrote and managed the story. But
they also had a really cute touch that I don't know if you guys noticed in pretty much a majority of the episodes towards the later end, where there's less random characters milling about. He's not there, but we generated a bunch of different designs of Matt Mercer.
Oh, that's great. So he just, like, pops up in the background.
So, like, the guy who took their weapons for the party at that little desk, that was Matt Mercer. The guy who got peed on by Scanlan in episode 1, that was Matt Mercer. Just, you know, a lot of he's in the background randomly because, well, it's his world, he created it, so he's just there.
I love that.
That's actually really funny.
Yeah, and, like, for those who know, they know, but otherwise, it's just this random dude.
Yeah.
Yeah, and that's, you know, it's an interesting thing, too, because, like, there's, like, I feel like it's frankly even, it's, like, in some ways less of a jump, but in some ways way more of a jump to, like, you know, adapt a real play podcast into, like, a watchable piece of media than it even would be, like, adapting, like, a book into, you know, a show or a movie.
Or even just, like, a radio show. I mean, there have been adaptations of radio shows into film or TV, but, you know, with, like, a real play podcast, again, it's very improvised, and thus it doesn't quite follow structure the way TV series. Yeah, so, like, you kind of have to, like, figure out what's important, what's not,
and also where's a good place to end an episode.
Exactly.
Like,
right.
Because that's a big thing in general for it's like, okay, this really works to tie into this section, but maybe it doesn't need to be in this episode. Maybe we can put it in the next episode. And that kind of stuff.
I mean, another interesting thing about it, too, is that, like, when you're writing a narrative, whether it be, like, for, you know, a book or a movie, the characters are whatever you need them to be and can be as present or not present as you need them to be. But part of the dynamic of a real play podcast, like, even if it is something that is done for entertainment, there still is this dynamic of the DM has to give every character kind of a fair share and a role to, like, so that the player is still having fun. Because, like, I mean, even, like, that's certainly how it is when you're just playing with your friends, but, like, when you're doing, like, an entertainment thing, right? Like, if one of the characters just is not getting enough to do and is not having fun, like, that's also going to come across to the people listening, right? So there is sort of this dynamic of, like, even though there's this whole story that's based on Percy's backstory, and there are some characters like Scanlan or Grog who are a bit more comic relief, they still get a lot to do, and it kind of reads that it's like, okay, one of these players might be more invested in, like, exploring their backstory, and one of these players might just want, like, a lot of things to punch, you know? And both of that kind of comes across where it's just like, the Percy is a more important character in the story of the first season, but it doesn't feel like, any of the characters really are just like left out from getting to do stuff and have moments and, even get like lines that explore their backstory and motivation and stuff like that. So it's an interesting sort of dynamic.
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, I do have a question for you guys.
Yeah, go ahead.
Based on where we end season 1, what would you guys want to be the next progression for season 2? Are there characters you wish we saw more of? Or is there backstory that you were like, ooh, I want to know that?
I sort of want a season to be like devoted to, if not each character, but like, like we could have, like this was sort of a Percy and sort of a Pyke season, right? So like having a season that is a bit more, I don't know, split up between like 2 different characters or 3 different characters, like so that they each kind of get their fill of like character arcs and motivations and stuff like that in a big like sort of ensemble cast. Like that would be cool to see, like, each season kind of focuses on someone different.
Yeah. I think the twins like kind of had their thing rushed a little because like, in the first 2 episodes, it's like, oh, a dragon killed our mother, and oh, hey, there's the dragon that killed our mother. Let's kill it, and they kill it.
Oh, that's not the dragon that killed their mother.
No, it wasn't.
That's not the dragon that killed their mother.
Yeah, so like that's how it read to me, where it's just like, okay, they have a backstory that has not been delved in yet, but then also coincidentally, we are also going to do a dragon thing. And, Vex has like certain ranger skills that are based on hunting dragons. So that incorporates and it's relevant, but this is not their.
Yeah, that is not their
Briarwood story.
Okay.
Yeah.
That's just like the ranger favorite enemy thing, not like actually like some
right.
sort of,
Yeah, that is,
It wasn't
killed my mom
dragon,
detector.
it was
Gotcha.
just a dragon. Yeah.
Okay, gotcha. I mean, yeah, I guess I would want to see like stories for the other characters. I guess I think like Scanlan and Grog, like if you don't want the characters to get old, might need a little more to flush them out, but I get how like if you're adapting a thing that already exists, you may not be able to do that, but yeah.
That's good to know.
Right, and like what? Like you're fucking writing it? Shut up.
No, I'm basing it off of what I know of season 2, so I'm like, oh, okay, cool.
Yeah.
We'll see if it lines up.
But because that's the thing too, is like not every character even in a D&D campaign has like a full arc or anything like that. Sometimes there are just characters that are just like very present throughout, which is how I feel a bit more. Like Scanlan feels like, okay, there's probably some stuff there, and they're probably, like in the original campaign, and I'm sure there was some stuff devoted to Grog and his thing, but it really feels like it wouldn't feel like it was doing the character a huge disservice if there was never like anything about him and he was just always there.
Yeah,
it's it's hard to say really without having listened to the whole
Right.
I will say after watching this, it does make me want to go like absorb the original material to like spot the differences and get basically an expansion of this show, because like obviously with the 112 episode season is basically for like a 90 episode or a 90 hour kind of thing, right? It'd be cool to like get an expansion of that. That's why I generally like going book then movie.
Yeah, I will say Briarwood arc, the first half of it is a very different arc.
Fair. I meant to say movie then book is what I meant to say. Didn't make any sense. Sorry.
So I was just curious, like, because like that is kind of the question of like where do you go next, and so like as a viewer, I just was curious what you guys would wanted to, who you were interested in knowing more about and that kind of stuff, because it's important of like, oh, if we don't want to hear more about Percy, cool, maybe don't do more about Percy, but
right.
I
mean, it's like, I want to know more about Caleth, but like, it's clear that they're gonna focus more on Caleth soon, so... Yeah, like, I feel like that doesn't really need to be said. Yeah, I guess that's kind of like the problem with like something that's only got like one season. It's like, I want this. Well, it's gonna come, just wait a little bit, like...
Right, yeah.
Yeah, people are like, they didn't explain this, and it's like, yeah, because they're clearly gonna explain it later.
Yeah.
You're
or they're
right.
hoping they get more seasons to be able to explain it later.
And it feels like, judging by the popularity of the the Kickstarter and how fast that blew up from being like a 2-episode thing to a 12-episode thing, and then Amazon taking on a second season, sort of feels likely that there's going to be more to come afterwards if it still keeps getting
we'll see.
Generally positive support.
I was really happy to see how well it did on like Rotten Tomatoes and stuff. Like that was the one thing I was worried about, was like, we're making a really cool, dope show. God, I hope people like it.
Yeah.
And also, it's like a very adult fantasy. When I say adult, I don't necessarily.
It's a
mature
rating. Yeah.
It's a mature rating,
Yeah.
and it's a fantasy, and it's an action series. Those do not survive long.
Right.
Yeah, so like I was personally very nervous when I was like, we're going for gore, we're going for boobs, okay, sure.
Like if this was like a low budget sitcom kind of thing, oh yeah, sure, we'll get like 20 seasons, but like an action series,
an action
high fantasy,
animated,
an action animated high fantasy, no. So often we'll like see things that stray too far from the familiar get killed in the cradle. Like, man, I'm still like upset about Infinity Train being canceled.
Yeah,
and Infinity Train's not even like the weirdest recent kids show either. Like, there's other stuff like Gravity Falls and Steven Universe that like gets even darker in some ways than Infinity Train.
I think Infinity Train.
Infinity Train does get pretty dark. Yeah.
Infinity Train does outdark those. Like, the reason it got canceled wasn't because of like lack of success. Like, people are very devoted to it. It like brought in a lot of people to HBO Max. The reason it got canceled is because there wasn't really a good kid entry point, quote unquote.
Yeah, that's true.
Yeah, the world of animation is really tough to keep your show going unless you're The Simpsons
or SpongeBob.
I mean, we have gotten like a few more recent examples of like kind of adult animated shows having fairly successful mainstream presences, like Invincible. Like, I see a lot of people talking about Invincible when it was coming out.
The big question though is, are we going to get past the 3 season and a movie?
Yeah,
right,
exactly. Yeah. Or like not an adult series, but like The Owl House, really good fantasy series. The 3rd season, it has been cut in half, and it is ending kind of prematurely. Like, they've been warned ahead of time, and thus are able to like actually like try to wrap things up. But like, they made it clear this is not how they planned it.
Yeah, it's like a bigger, larger issue than just the Critical Role of it all. But so I don't want to stray too far from Critical Role, but that is like, I would love for this show to be able to beat the 3 seasons in a movie curse.
Yeah. Although, I will say, like, it's a bit of a gift and a curse in some contexts, though, because, like, sometimes, like, as long as you have enough episodes, which 12 arguably isn't.
But they are 20 minutes.
Yeah, but, like, 3 seasons is not so short, whereas just, like, I'd rather, it do that than, like, just exist until it just gets bad and isn't funny anymore.
I want it to have the number of seasons it needs to tell the stories it needs to tell.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. Like with Owl House, I fully expect for them to have to like rush through things because season 3 has been chopped in half.
Is season 3 also the last season of Amphibia? Do we know that yet?
Yeah, season 3's the last season of Amphibia. Yeah,
3 seasons, man.
3 seasons.
Yeah. Hey man, I know all about 3 seasons. Every fucking Transformers show has 3 seasons. It's like always like a thing where it's just like, okay, yeah, this is when kids get a little bit less interested and toy sales start going downhill. And
I also think it's a legal thing where it's like after 3 seasons you gotta start paying people more or whatever, or something like that.
That would make sense.
I don't.
Or
I don't know enough of it. I do know you're supposed to get a pay bump with every season, which has its own problems.
Which they get around by like paying people for 1 season and then taking that season and just releasing it in 2 parts and saying, "Oh yeah,
you mean like Cuphead?
Oh my god!
Oh yeah, I like Cuphead.
Yeah,
exactly. That is exactly what I was thinking of. Yeah.
Yeah, I can't talk too much about all of this. I do still work in the industry.
Right.
Yeah, man, I really miss the days of 25 episode, 24 minute, or like 24 minute episodes, 25 episode seasons of things. you know?
Yeah.
Yeah,
Although even back then, like I think it might have been even worse back in the day,
Fair, yeah.
where like
yeah.
companies didn't just like stop shows at 3 seasons. They had a hard rule about stopping shows at 3 seasons.
Well, and it was also like for like SpongeBob's and stuff, it's like you're building them as like the 11 or like it's like an 11-minute episode for a 15-minute time slot that you just combine two. So you're actually doing like 40 episodes, but they turn out to be 20, kind of a thing.
Yeah. You like look at shows like Steven Universe, where like the first season is like a third of the total runtime out of a 5-season show.
That tends to be what they do, is they order a lot for a season 1.
Yeah.
And then see how it goes, and then they'll do smaller seasons after that. It's kind of another new trend.
Right.
Yeah. It's all wild, but either way, Critical Role, or The Legend of Vox Machina, I should say, since it's, that's like its official title, is a lot of fun.
Critical Role, comma, The Legend of Vox Machina.
Yeah.
Colon.
Right.
But yeah.
Oh yeah, colon, not comma.
But yeah, no, it's fun, and like it would have been nice, I think, if I'd had the time to kind of like catch up a little bit on Critical Role before doing this, so that we'd have someone who could like share that perspective. But from coming in and just getting it, vanilla as like a story in and of itself, I think it's a lot of fun, and it does make me kind of excited to see the adaptation of like even other like role play podcasts that I am more familiar with the source material with. Like, I'm really excited for whenever we hear more about it, that fucking Adventure Zone animated series, because I love the graphic novels and Adventure Zone is my shit. So.
Yeah, I think it's really opening a door for a lot of new fun adaptation of content.
Right, yeah. Because also, like, just in general, like, the Real Play podcast has been a thing that has kind of, like, blown up over the past, like, 10 years or so.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Because, it's kind of not to say that it's easy, but it's a easy kind of thing to like do, where it's just like, okay, this is something that is going to inherently be kind of interesting.
The barrier for entry is low in like real play podcasts, so like
right, which is not to say that there isn't a lot of work that goes into it, but
and it's easy to do lots of content, because it's like an arc is going to last at least X number of episodes, so you're not hurting for content in the way that you are with some of the other types of podcasts.
Right. And, as like on the pressure as like because it is this sort of like collaborative writing experience, there's less of a, immediate like pressure of like, oh shit, we have to keep doing this podcast. I have to write more content. It's like, well, you do still have to come up with, your story points as a DM or whatever.
But you can also just like throw ninjas at people and be like, yeah, that's the episode today.
Right, exactly. And like, just be like, hey, like, I'm going to leave it to the players for a little while to kind of make this interesting.
We're going to do a Monster of the Week because I'm tired.
But, anything else you guys want to say about it? I mean, I do want to, I don't know exactly what questions to ask you, Jocelyn, or what you're allowed to answer, but I do want to get a bit more of, like, your experience.
Yeah.
Like, working on it. Like, I know so little about how the industry actually operates, especially in like in terms of what you do, that I don't know the right things to ask. But
so what I can kind of say is that like I unfortunately didn't get to work with a lot of the main cast, like the OT8 team, but a lot of my meetings consisted of Sam, Rigel, Travis, and God, what is his name? I feel bad for forgetting his name. He's not one of the voice actors. He's more of a behind the scenes guy. Those were like our 3 EPs that were in a lot of meetings. And
were those people who were involved in the original?
Yeah. So Sam is Scanlan. Travis is Grog.
Oh, I see. Gotcha.
And then I feel so bad for forgetting his name. I feel so bad for forgetting his name. Brandon. His name is Brandon. No, I didn't just look that up. Brandon. Brandon, Sam, and Travis, even if they were the only 3 in the meetings, we always would send it to the rest of the crit team.
Brandon
So they always got to like... Yes.
Yeah.
So we would always send it to them so that like they all did get a say, which was kind of cool, is like having all of them be like, oh, we really like how this episode looks, is really fun.
That's interesting too, because it's like how often do the voice actors really get to be like also kind of the writers,
Right.
you know? Like having that
It was really wild having Sam and Travis in all of these meetings, because they do know some of the industry. They've worked on the voice acting side. They've worked on that and directing. Like I think Sam's been a voice director for the new DuckTales. I think he worked on for like vocal directing. So they know that side of it, and they know writing. And then for them to come into post and they're just like, we're just amazed that it's moving. So
My God, he's
it
walking.
looks amazing. You're making it even more amazing. Thank you. That was like, it was really cool, because they were like, we know stuff, but we don't know everything. So we trust you guys and your team.
Yeah, voice acting is different from like, live action acting, in that like we have like the image of like the actor coming up to the director with the script in hand being like, I like how this is going, but like here's my spin on things. Whereas in voice acting, that's not really the case. Like it is a very professional kind of, you got a job to do, you're told what to do and how to do it, you do it.
Yeah, it almost feels like, like part of the whole selling point of voice actors is like how malleable you are too. So it's like really like, oh, you have to be the exact character that that they have in mind or whatever. And of course you add your own, sort of like personality to it, but like it's more so like, okay, this is like really concretely like the animator's idea of like what this character is and does.
Yeah, like you're kind of like the paintbrush for someone else rather than like crafting the character yourself. Yeah.
Yeah, and I think it did help that they've had a lot of other experience on the other aspects of it, so it wasn't like they knew what they were doing for most of it, and it was really nice working on Critical Role. I do have to say has probably been one of the best jobs that I've had.
Yeah, no, I mean
everyone knew what they were doing. We were a really well-oiled machine. Like it was a very fun show to get to work on. It was the least stressed I've been on a lot. I've been very stressed on some shows in the past, and this was not one of it was a fun time.
Because there really is something to be said about like the main people sort of like fully in charge of this are also the people who know what it's like to be the person who's just given orders, you know what I mean? Whereas like, because the voice actors are the one who's like, are ultimately kind of the ones who have the creative vision, right? It's just like, well, yeah, who knows the character better than the voice actor who originally played this character, and invented it from their own head.
But they were also very willing to be like, oh, this animator is a very good animator. I trust them to animate them.
Right.
Like that, there was a lot of trust involved that I don't think is usual for some EPs come in and don't know anything and are still just as controlling, even though they don't know the process. And so for these guys to come in and be like, oh, yeah, no, I trust this team. I trust what they're capable of. We know and we believe in who we hired to do the jobs that we hired them to do. And we know they'll knock it out of the park. And then they did. That was a really cool aspect, was just seeing people be trusted for their talents was really nice. The amount of support that they gave and the amount of like reassurance of like, no, you guys are great at what you do was just a really nice thing that it was like during a pandemic when you're working from home and you don't actually get to be in the room with people a lot. It was still a very welcoming environment, which was really cool.
Well, good shit.
Just did want to say that, because that was fun. I'm trying to think of, like, cool, fun stuff that we, like, did. I do kind of want to... Do you guys remember the fight with Scanlan on the roof with Stonefell?
Yeah.
Yeah, like after he just, like, against all odds goes and, like, fucks up the whole house.
Yeah, when he, like, shoots a laser from his dick. That one?
Yeah.
We so wanted to make it a balls joke and have two orbs start
oh my god
the explosion, but we did not. We decided against it. But that was a really fun. We talked too much about doing it.
Like, I will say, you guys got a lot of mileage out of Scanlan and his ability to turn anything into an innuendo. Like, my God.
Oh.
And, like, it is like an innuendo a minute. It is incredible.
And I think it helped having Sam in the room for a lot of it, because he would pitch it, and we'd all go, "You're right. We should do it." and then he's like, "Guys, no. I didn't mean to do it. I was just having fun." And we're like, "No, we should do it." And he's like, "No. And we're like, "No, we should do it." And so, like, there was a couple of those kinds of moments where, like, we're all like, "Should we do it? Nah, should we? Yeah, let's do it." Like, there was a lot of those fun moments where it was, like, just random pitches to add levity to a moment and having us kind of go, "Oh, yeah, we have the time to get that done. Might as well. Let's do it." So that was kind of fun. But yeah, that was, I think, having literally Scanlan and Grog in meetings was super helpful a lot of the times too, because it helped make sure we were getting the characters right.
Right.
Yeah, definitely, right. Because, like, just, like, it's an interesting, because, like, the original medium is an audio medium. Yeah, I mean, they've got the YouTube videos, but it's just them sitting around a table. They don't have, like, visuals for, like, how the characters actually move or whatever. It's just something that has to feel right to the way that they act, which is I mean, I guess that's not unique to this. That's also, I guess, the case with, like, books and shit, but you know what I'm saying.
Yeah.
But yeah, I mean, unless there's anything else you guys want to bring up, I think that's probably a good time to move over to the ratings. All right, thank you both for a very fun discussion. It was Jocelyn. It was really cool to get some of your insights as someone who actually, like, worked on part of this. Now we're going to be moving on to the rating section, where we're going to rate the topic on a scale from 1 to 10.
Dick jokes.
1 to 10 dick jokes. 1 to 10. I don't have any good fucking ideas for this. Usually there's, like, something that's like, well, that's stupid. But
1 to 10 nat 20s?
Yeah, I like that. 1 to 10 critical rolls, I guess, technically, right? 1 to 10 critical hits, 20s. So yeah, 1 to 10 natural 20s, I guess, is what we're going with. Yeah, Chowder, how did you feel about this?
Yeah, no, I think this is a pretty darn solid show. While, like, I feel like the pacing can suffer, I think that's, like, a almost inevitable result of it being part of, like, a very long, serialized, improvised series. But, like, again, it manages to, like, really make the characters likable, and you do want to, like, know more about them, which is perhaps the thing they need to nail the most, because this is an ensemble cast where, like, the main draw is the characters more than anything else. Because the setting is really just there for them to do their thing.
Right,
And, like, the action scenes are, like, pretty darn good, man. Like, they're like, well choreographed, well shot. Yeah, no, I'm gonna give it, like, a 7 out of 10. Very solid, very good.
Nice.
Want to see more.
Nice.
Jocelyn, obviously you're biased, but how do you feel?
Yeah, I have to play this real careful. 1
out of 10, it sucks. Fuck this show.
It's a critical failure. So it had been a while since I watched the show. I work on post, so I see the finished product, like, pretty heavily.
Right, yeah.
But it had been a while since I had, because we finished it and I had moved on to other things, so it had been a while since I had seen a lot of those episodes. And it was really nice to get to watch it kind of as if I was a first-time viewer for once. Normally I'm in my projects pretty heavily up until when they air, so it's all still really fresh. So getting to see it pretty much as, like, a new viewer was really awesome and really cool, because I forgot half of the plots that were gonna happen. So it was fun. I really enjoyed it. Some of the gore still gets me. Still is a little too much.
Yeah, it is a little excessive. Yeah. I mean, I like,
and, like,
hyperviolence.
It's stylized, and I get it. It's cool. Just some of it, I was like, ooh, wow, we did that.
Yeah.
Meanwhile, like, my favorite shot is when the head goes onto the tree in episode 2. It's just, like, the guy's, like, knocked over in his head. That's my favorite shot. So, like, who am I to talk about too much gore? But So, like, I think I give it, like, an 8.5 out of 10, because there's certain things here and there where, like, I'm like, we probably could have done this better. But that's purely from me going, I wish I could have done certain things differently.
I mean, I think that's just the inevitable outcome of just, like, making something. You will always...
Yeah, you always want it to be better. It could always be improved somehow.
Yeah, you will always look at your thing and be like, no, this flaw. And, like, it'll be, like, one pixel that nobody's gonna notice or even care about.
One frame is wrong, yeah.
Yeah, in terms of how I feel about it, I will say that, like, I mean, just talking about it as a show and not in its, like, relation to Critical Role, I found it more digestible than, like, a lot of, like, other recent... Like, the one that actually reminds me of it the most, like, partially because the animation style is pretty similar, and then also it's got the whole thing with the gore, and it's also fucking on Amazon, is Invincible. And, like, where I feel like that show really takes the goriness as, like, a feature of, like, shock value, this show sort of feels like it doesn't really... Like, it doesn't really make the gore a feature, where it's just, like, it's accented moments, but the whole plot isn't, like, conceptually gory, if that makes sense. You know what I mean? Whereas, like, Invincible tries to, like, go out of its way to make things, like, real fucked up, you know? Whereas, like, this show is just like, oh yeah, these are a bunch of good boys having a bunch of good times, and also they fight stuff, so of course it's going to be a little bit gory. And part of that, I'm sure, is translated from Matt Mercer painting word pictures, right? It's like, you have to be kind of graphic with some stuff because you have to be, like, extra graphic to get that point across to players who aren't seeing things as they happen, you know? So I feel like it works pretty well. I'd probably land somewhere in that 7 to 8 range as well. I'd say, like, it sort of feels like, you know, like, while this season had a completed arc, the fact that it was, like, just based on, like, one of the characters' backstories sort of feels like we're not getting, like, even a full resolution of, like, a full season, if that makes sense.
Yeah, that's
because it's like, well, we know that we're going to be focusing on more of these people because this isn't the Percy show, so it feels like I'm looking at a, you know, yet completed project.
Are we sure it's not the Percy show? He looks like the main character.
He does give off main character vibes. He is, like, shonen protagonist kind of dude.
He is anime main boy. No, he's
but he's not even, like, when we're not doing the scenes that are, like, specifically pertaining to his family or whatever, like, he's not even the most present character.
Oh, yeah,
you know?
yeah. He's off brooding somewhere.
Well, he's more like the rival to the main character, if nothing else. Like the Sasuke to his Naruto.
Yeah, true.
The Vegeta to his Goku.
Oh my god. He even does the Naruto run.
Oh my god, he does.
That's true.
Yeah.
But yeah, no, I like the show a lot. Again, like you guys said, like, I feel like all the characters are pretty compelling, even the ones that didn't get as much, like, attention this season. And I'm pretty excited about where it's going, so I'll definitely be excited when the next season comes out. But yeah, I think that's a good place to wrap it up. Thank you for listening to the Comic Geeking program. Again, I have been your host, Jeff Leavitt. If you want to find me anywhere, I do a toy review channel on YouTube. That's Alchemist Prime Reviews. That's about it, at least right now. And again, I've been joined by Chowder and Jocelyn. Would either of you have things you want to toss out there? Yours are much more relevant, both of you.
Hi, I'm Taeemul Chowdhury, or Chowder, whichever you prefer. You can find me on Twitter at Taeemul_Chowder. You can also find me on our sister podcast, Dice Populi, which is in fact a real play D&D podcast, where we are currently in a story arc of my creation. I make Matt Mercer look I can't even joke. No, Matt Mercer.
You guys do have a very good podcast, though, I will say.
Thanks.
It's definitely worth a listen.
Yeah, Jocelyn, what are you doing for the fucking Dice Populi group? You got those in connections with working on Critical Role. Now you've got to get Dice Populi in Amazon series next.
Don't tempt me.
Fuck, that would be amazing.
I keep fucking screwing up the names because they're both weird fucking Latin things. Vox Machina and Dice Populi.
Synonymous.
Yeah.
Sorry, go ahead.
But yeah, I'm proud of what's been done, so give it a watch when you can, or listen when you can.
Listen,
yeah.
Really, yeah. A watch 10 years in the future,
Maybe.
Who knows?
Probably not, no.
And Jocelyn?
Yeah, I'm Jocelyn. I'm not going to give out my Twitter because I've just been very pro Animation Union right now, and that's just not fun for anyone to have to deal with if you don't want to fight the fight. So, but please watch Critical Role Legend of Vox Machina on Amazon Prime, Mau Mau, Heroes of Pure Hearts on HBO Max, and maybe more soon to come. We'll find out. Those are my two big ones that I like to plug because they're really fucking great.
Yeah, I watched the first few episodes of Mau Mau a long time ago, and I just kind of fell off of it. I've really got to pick that back up.
It is a fun time of cat samurai goodness.
Yeah, no, Mama's just, it's a fun time. I don't know, I just think it's very cute.
It is adorable. I mean, who doesn't love a cat fighting and
True.
being angry?
But so that's us. Our next episode is going to be another common briefing program where we focus on the geek news of this month, and that will be on where this is for March right now. That will be on the first Friday in April. I forgot what month it was currently. And that'll be, oh shit. Oh, fuck. Our next briefing program is on April Fool's Day, April 1st.
Oh my goodness.
Oh, yes!
I almost want to do a gimmick episode where we don't even cover actual news. We just bullshit everything.
Oh, fuck. Yeah, we'll
have to talk about that.
You guys have to, yeah.
And then our next regular Common Geeking program episode, where we do another deep dive on a different topic, will be on or about the third Friday in April, which will be the 15th. So look forward to both of those things. Thank you all for listening and subscribing and sharing and everything that you do, and we will talk to you next time.
Ciao.
Bye.
Der. The Common Geeking program is hosted by Jeff Leavitt, joined this episode by Taeemul Chowdhury and Jocelyn Barkenhagen. This episode is sponsored by my cat relentlessly meowing outside my door. He just won't shut up. The podcast is created and produced by Colin, Ketchen, and Jeff Leavitt, and features original music by Colin Ketchen. This episode was edited by me, Jeff Leavitt, as well as Taeemul Chowdhury. We'd love for you to stay engaged with us on social media at Geeking Program or by using #CGP. If you want to know more about us and all of our other projects, head over to commongeekingprogram.com. Stay in touch, stay tuned, and as always, thank you for listening to this. I just don't get it. He just does this. There's not even anything wrong. Today, he started at 1:45 a.m. Daddy just wants a little alone time, and this motherfucker won't shut up.
Common